Douglas Murray and Dave Smith on the Joe Rogan show went at it recently, and the clip went viral. They were both talking about their viewpoints on what's going on in Israel. Check out this clip with Elika Laban, who goes through Dave Smith's argument and moral posturing and completely dismantles it. You're going to want to watch this clip. It's really, really good. But before we watch it, hit that subscribe button over there in the corner.
Douglas Murray and Dave Smith recently appeared on an episode of Joe Rogan, and there are these constant false analogies. Here was Dave Smith's analogy. If somebody comes and kills a member of your family and you seek revenge against them, and you know where they live, and you go out and blow up their entire building with them alongside men, women, and children inside, you would be convicted of murder of all of them. That is correct. However, that is a false analogy, and we're going to explain why. Two key omissions and contortions are, number one, who has the authority to respond? And number two, what is the objective of responding? In the analogy given, there is a private individual whose motivation is to exact revenge. This is called vigilante justice, and it is illegal. So we understand, first of all, that the analogy is incorrect because a civilian is not the authorized body to respond. Second of all, what is the objective of responding? If it's revenge, that's also illegal. Nobody, not even the authorities, have the right to exact revenge. The correct equivalent is that the authorities, who are the authorized body to respond, are acting not out of revenge, but for the purpose of retrieval. Not just retrieval, but the capture of an individual who has committed a crime and has evaded responsibility and has verbally promised to commit the same crime 1,000 times more. Now let's give an accurate analogy. A kidnapper breaks into your house and steals your child. You don't go after the kidnapper, you call the authorities. Law enforcement then pursues that kidnapper, but what that kidnapper does is he goes and hides himself in a school playground. He buries himself amongst a bunch of children, and he's got that child in his arms. In this scenario, law enforcement has the right to act. They don't have carte blanche, but they have the right to act. And not only do they have the right, they must act. Because failure to act is immorality. Failure to act leads to the potential death of that child. This is a non-negotiable. To claim otherwise is immorality itself. A response is a moral obligation. So now, if the law enforcement officer shoots at the kidnapper, and as a result of that, the children around the kidnapper die, who do you think bears the legal, moral, and factual responsibility for those children's deaths? I'm not going to make you guess. It's very simple. The kidnapper. In all cases. Let's talk about why. Because the kidnapper set off a chain of events that made it so that the law enforcement officer had to respond. And that response led to the deaths of children. That kidnapper is the but-for cause of those deaths. That kidnapper knowingly and intentionally buried himself among innocent children in order to evade capture. It is that is immoral. It is that is repugnant. And it is that caused the death of the children. I'm not saying this as a matter of opinion. Let me reiterate, that is factually, morally, and legally the case. The next question then is, would the law enforcement officer face any responsibility? Yes, that is also possibly the case in the instance that their actions were negligent. Or in the instance that they had another alternative that would not have involved harming those children. They would probably not face criminal consequences, but there may be some consequences regardless. There is no scenario, listen to me good, there is no scenario where that kidnapper is not 100% morally, legally, and factually responsible for those deaths. Now, let's make the analogy to the war in Gaza. When Hamas broke into Israel on October 7th, not just slaughtered 1,200 people, but kidnapped hundreds more, and then went back to Gaza, that triggered the right of Israel to retrieve those hostages, not to exact revenge, but to retrieve. Secondly, when Hamas said, We promise to do this 1,000 times more. That triggered the right of Israel to prevent that 1,000 times more by dismantling the group that made such a promise. Because of Hamas's decision, that set off a chain of events that led to a war. And every single death that results from that war is caused by Hamas. Does Israel have any responsibility? Of course. Let's say that because of poor intelligence, Israel was led to believe that Hamas militants were within a particular building. Turns out that intelligence was wrong. And Israel strikes that building and kills innocent people. If that intelligence was shaky, if there was no strong reason to suspect that Hamas were in there, that would constitute negligent or reckless behavior. In such a case, Israel would also bear the responsibility for those deaths. However, under no circumstances, because Hamas set off this chain of events, under no circumstances would Hamas not be responsible for those deaths, the deaths in that very building. So when Hamas bears the responsibility for all of these deaths, and Israel bears shared responsibility, why is it that when we talk about objective immorality, we don't talk about the cause of that immorality? And that's exactly the point that Douglas Murray was making. Anybody can be against war. Not everybody understands the cause of that war. Everybody can say they know the difference between right and wrong. Not everybody understands the source of that wrong. And that is the difference between moral grandstanding and moral clarity. Moral grandstanding says, I'm such a good person because I know the difference between right and wrong. Moral clarity says, regardless of how it may make me look, and in fact, I may be very unpopular for saying it, I am willing to stand up and identify the source of that wrong because I'm genuinely motivated by preventing the deaths of the people that I claim to care about.
This is spot on, 100% accurate, and a complete dismantling of Dave Smith's moral posturing that he showed on the Joe Rogan show, where, again, everyone can say, I don't like war, and war is wrong, and war is bad, but having the moral clarity is where Douglas Murray was trying to come into the picture over here. Love this, and love to hear your comments below. And if you like this content overall, hit that subscribe button over there in the corner. We'd love to stay in touch. Take care.